All right, YouTube, it's time to talk about the South Carolina primaries. Could wait, a day or two, but we've got a pretty good idea of what's going on there, so might as well make the prediction now. Trump, I believe, is going to win South Carolina. Clinton is going to win on the Democratic side, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Bernie Sanders actually outperforms expectations slightly. He's been rising also in Nevada, which is very bad news for Hillary Clinton because, of course, he blew her out of the water in New Hampshire. He basically tied with her in Iowa. And nobody ever expected him to win South Carolina. All he has to do there is not get completely ass blasted. And you see, I believe, increasingly people who are sort of left independents, certainly the under 35s, really are stealing and are more steeled in their support for Bernie Sanders now. First, I think some people, he had Trump's problem basically. Before he had won a state, nobody took him as seriously. Now you see other people that may have been more or less on board with some of his ideologies and or just really didn't like Hillary Clinton jumping on board. Hillary has had several problems in the last week. She had another coughing fit, which I think is the fourth time now that that's happened. People are perhaps rightly becoming concerned with her health. I don't say this in an ironic or partisan manner. I think there's something wrong with Hillary Clinton. And I mean more than just, she lies. Well, people knew that in the 1990s, but she was perfectly healthy. I think there might be something going on with her health that she has not disclosed to the voters. Because several times now, she's broken down and begun uncontrollably coughing. This last time she coughed for almost 2 minutes nonstop, up on stage at an important event. Now, normally people don't have that happen to them. I understand this is somebody who's on the older side making, hour and a half long speeches. I can understand, but when has that happened to Sanders? Sanders is older than she is. Never happened to him. It hasn't happened to Trump. Trump is getting up there in years. It hasn't happened to to any of the. Ron Paul used to give speeches that were an hour, 2 hours long. It never happened to him either. It only seems to be happening to this one candidate, and people are starting to make jokes, sort of half-veiled truths disguised as jokes about, well, maybe she's not as healthy as she's letting on. Certainly, falling down several times, once getting onto a plane, I remember a few months ago, and then previous to that when she was sort of out of the limelight for several days, and then emerged with corrective lenses on her glasses. I think falling down, having coughing fits, apparently going off kilter and barking like a dog and doing things like that, it doesn't speak well of her overall health. And I think that Sanders increasingly is going to be a threat to her. I'm still saying that I expect Hillary to be the nominee. Specifically, I predicted this months ago because of the superdelegates within the Democratic system. The deck was always stacked against Sanders. He has to not just outperform, but severely outperform, and or Hillary has to croak, or have an actual visible, publicly provable stroke up on stage during a debate in order to lose the nomination. The DNC is completely stacked in her favor. As for the Republican side, Trump will win South Carolina. He'll win it by double digits. Whether it's closer to the 20, which is a few points ahead of where he's averaging in the polls, with some of the polls showing that, or whether it's closer to 10, which is sort of the low that he's polling at, as far as how much extra support he has over Cruz or Rubio, who are deadlocked for second place right now. As to whether it's on the higher or lower end, I think in South Carolina, you're going to see an evening out between what happened in New Hampshire, which was independents flooded in to vote for Trump. That will happen here to a lesser extent, but it will happen. And what happened in Iowa, which is, of course, Trump was technically ahead, yet Ted Cruz managed to win because evangelicals floated in to vote for him. Well, in South Carolina, you do have a strong independent movement, but you also have a strong evangelical movement. Neither of these movements are as large as they were respectively in the states won by Cruz among evangelicals, by Trump among independents. He's already in general election mode and has been for some time. When people act mystified And Greg Gutfeld on Fox News was the only one, actually, and Geraldo, I believe, are the only ones who have actually pointed this out. Other than myself, which I pointed out some time ago, he's already now in the general election. In his mind, it's no longer important. The field has thinned. Most of the competitors are no longer viable. Those that are, he believes he is capable of comfortably overcoming because he expects to win South Carolina and Nevada, taking the wind out of the sails of Rubio. It's going to take the wind out of the sails of Ted Cruz. He expects to be the nominee. He is angling himself in such a way that when the general election comes around, he will be competitive at a far greater rate than whoever the Democratic nominee is among independents and perhaps disenfranchised Democrats, especially those who were anti-war under W. He's ingratiating himself to them directly. This is probably many millions of people. I'm one of them. People who were at one time Democrats but then realized Obama has made the same mistake W did. He's attempting to sweep up those votes. He's going after independents. He's probably going to go after the minority voting blocks, which Hillary is much weaker than her husband was on. Sanders might be competitive, but for some odd reason, this is something I don't really understand. I'm still not quite understanding why minorities would back Hillary Clinton when Bernie Sanders is the one offering the kinds of reform that would actually improve their lives. And he honestly is. It would cost an enormous amount of money, but yes, he is offering that to them. For somebody like myself who's self-employed, there's no reason to vote for Sanders. But for somebody who, your dad's was locked up for drug possession, and your mom is a heroin addict, and you're completely out of work and in debt to, mafiosos or something, yeah, you probably would benefit from voting for Sanders, honestly. If you're one of those unfortunate people that's had a really rough shake in life, yes, Sanders' policies are potentially very good for you. You probably won't pay much more, and you'll get a lot back. He's going to pay for that by destroying most of the productivity in this country, which means that after a few years, everybody will be as impoverished as you. But stick it to the man while you can, I guess. It's a little bit juvenile, if you ask me. Originally, I said Bernie Sanders, yeah, okay, he makes kind of some sense fiscally. Over time, though, looking at his plans, I've decided no, he doesn't. Really, what he's offering is stupidity. That's what Bernie Sanders is offering. I like him on social issues. I really do. I completely agree with him on the drug war. I completely agree with him on mass incarceration. I'm probably further left than he is on war and similar issues. But fiscally, I think he would destroy this nation in a very, very quick period of time. If you think that the collapse under W, as a result of both his stupid wars and Clinton's recension of certain fiscal safeguards was bad, Sanders would bring us worse, potentially. So I won't be voting for Bernie Sanders under any circumstances. I've already said I support the Libertarian Party. However, there is a growing reason to why I might support somebody like Donald Trump in a general election. Because he's making it he's beating them at their own game. He's being brutally honest to the point where, people on Fox are proclaiming him to be a liberal. He's the only person there who's willing to stand up and say, yeah, W was a fucking moron. Which we all know. 99% of the population were aware that W was a moron. It's just that people within the GOP, they look at you as a traitor if you say that. Oh, you pinko commie, Bush kept us safe, Bush did all these great things. It was Obama who pissed him away. No, it wasn't. Bush pissed away trillions of dollars and got thousands of people killed and oversaw all sorts of terrorism and the expansion of Al-Qaeda long before Obama got into office. His mishandling of the situation is why Obama got elected. Everything that Obama has done wrong, which is an expansive list, is requisite upon him being elected. He never would have. He would have been laughed off of stage if W had not been such a moron. And I recognize that. I abandoned the Republicans with W because I realized he was retarded. He didn't know what he was doing. I backed Obama. I realized Obama was retarded. I abandoned him and I went for Ron Paul because I saw him as the sensible alternative to the centrist establishment within the GOP. I said, well, the Democrats aren't even offering a reformer right now. They're just offering more Obama. At least there's one Republican candidate who sometimes makes sense. I'll vote for him. I've determined that, Ron Paul got shafted. And so voting for him is kind of an empty gesture. He had no actual way to win. He was out. Romney became the nominee. Here, though, we have somebody who is at least an acceptable candidate named Donald Trump, who is likely to become the nominee. He's leading. He's been the front runner for 6 months solid. He's going to win South Carolina. He's probably going to win Nevada. He could win Ted Cruz's home state of Texas. He might win every state on Super Tuesday. It's no longer outside of the realm of possibility. If he wins the next 2 in a row come Super Tuesday, I'm sorry, folks, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trump runs all the Super Tuesday states. Then you can say whatever the hell you want. He's obviously going to be the nominee. Nobody else is going to have a fucking penny to their name at that point. It doesn't matter how many corporate donors they've stacked up. Those donations are going to dry up real fast if Trump makes it clear, kind of no longer just a meme candidate here. I do think that Trump is a sensible alternative to what the GOP has traditionally offered. What the hardliners within the GOP, the big money people within the GOP, appear not to have realized is that a lot of younger Republicans and many independents who they can't vote for the Democratic Party, they're looking for other options. They're thinking third party, maybe this independent satire, vermin supreme, someone who's just satirizing it because there's no one else to vote for, or a reformer within the GOP. They're cast a lot of independents and disenfranchised feeling Republicans and Democrats alike that are no longer really hardline partisans are casting around for somebody. They don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat. They don't care about the fact that they're within a mainstream party. They're pissed at the mainstream parties. But if the person is offering a real form of reform, then they would be willing to vote for him. Trump has already sewn that up. That's why he's doing so well. A lot of the people voting for him are not registered to begin with as Republicans. That's true. That's not a bad thing, by the way. The Karl Roves and the Rush Limbaughs and the Glenn Becks are acting as though this is a bad thing. Oh, we're being infiltrated by a liberal named Trump. You're not understanding. He's not a liberal. What he's doing is bringing new blood into the GOP, you fucking morons. He's going to give you the presidency. He's going to give you a stacked Senate and House. He's going to give you more governorships than you already have. And you're acting as though he's your enemy? Well, this just goes to show exactly the kind of stupid reasoning that led to the W era and led to the fact that Mitt Romney lost so handily against somebody that any halfway decent candidate could have overcome. It's almost suicidal. The idiots like Glenn Beck, with his conspiracy theorist bullshit nonsense, and people like Karl Rove that represent, who had his own polling, and he still has his own polling, and he's confident that Ted Cruz will win or Rubio will win or something. These morons are so short-sighted. They're not even really thinking about winning the election. Oddly enough, the candidate who will actually allow them as a party to win is also the one trying to reform the party and make it something other than the party of, well, we need to, kill people that we disagree with. That's essentially what the Republican moron party of Karl Rove became. It became the party of authoritarianism on social issues, wasteful spending. It doesn't even add up to real conservatism on fiscal issues. Yeah, we'll slash your taxes, but we're going to keep spending more so that we run up debt. Then that's apparently conservatism to somebody like Glenn Beck, to somebody like Rush Limbaugh. Well, it's no wonder the GOP lost the last election. It's no fucking wonder. These idiots are running their own party into the ground and then pretending that Donald Trump's the traitor. By the way, the Democrats have done the same thing. The DNC right now is stacking the deck for somebody that the voters clearly don't really want. Hillary enjoys higher support nationally than Bernie Sanders because people took her as inevitable. Now that he's won New Hampshire and they no longer think that she's truly inevitable, they're all flocking to Bernie Sanders. Now, is Sanders a reformer? No. Fundamentally, no, he's not. He's a half-assed liberal, not even really a socialist, although he claims to be one. He doesn't even really have some of the positive aspects of a real socialist system to speak for. And anyway, if he were to try to implement him, he'd be branded as a communist and probably dragged out of the White House kicking and screaming by the military for treason. Bernie Sanders is at best a mild reform over the Democratic Party that has been reigning for some time. Still, though, he's perceived as more honest, and it's obvious people don't really like Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary can drag the "I've got a vagina" card out all that she wants. Clearly, the voters are no longer responding to them. It's like people who, they back Obama and they say, well, Obama's black, so, if you criticize Obama, then obviously you're a racist. Well, criticizing, Madam Clinton will get you branded as a sexist by some. I don't care whether people try to label me that. I think she's a withered old cunt bag. And she is. She's also probably in poor health. She has bad ideas. She's taking money from the same people that are funding Rubio and Cruz. So don't try to lie to me and tell me that it's a Democrats versus Republican issue. Because the same groups are obviously supporting both sides. So, that goes bye-bye at that point. There are two people in the race that aren't taking that kind of money, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And since I'm a productive member of society, I can't vote for Sanders. So that leaves either Donald Trump or a third party or satirical candidate. Now, if Trump were to go off the rails and say something that really pissed me off, that'd be out. And if the Libertarian Party, especially, if they go for McAfee, as I've said before, there's no way I'll support them. Gary Johnson's fine. Gary Johnson's great. McAfee, no. Give me Jesse Ventura, even someone who's a little bit of a screwball like that, and I'll consider it. Otherwise, I'd be tempted to vote for Vermin Supreme, honestly. I know it's a wasted vote, but he probably would. Oddly enough, if he was taken seriously and actually got elected, Vermin Supreme would probably be a better president than Hillary Clinton. He'd probably be because he wouldn't take his job too seriously. He just wouldn't do anything for 4 years. Well, there are times when doing nothing is better than doing something. If all you've got is bad ideas, you should sit down, shut up, and enjoy the free money that the taxpayers are giving you, because at least you're not costing them more than a few $100,000 per year. At that point, Vermin Supreme would be the much cheaper, much more positive alternative to some idiot like Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or certainly Hillary Clinton. So yeah, I'd vote for Vermin Supreme, and it probably wouldn't be a wasted vote at the end of the day because he'd be, oddly enough, the most qualified candidate. But right now, Trump, after months of saying, well, ultimately some of his ideas sound good, but some of them are too screwy. I think in redefining, I think in truly defining where he stands on things like war, he's done well. And he's sewn up the independent voters, which is why he's going to run Nevada into the ground for all the other candidates. Yeah, I'll probably win by 20 points there. I wouldn't be surprised. I like that about him. I can respect him for that, and I will tell you, and I say this unironically, I think Trump felt personally betrayed on 9/11 and thereafter with the response. I think that's why he has a bone to pick with the centrist, the establishment, the Bushes, the Roves, the Becks and so forth of the Republican Party. I think he feels personally betrayed by them. I think that he's he's a Reaganite-style Republican. He felt that their ineffective stupidity, both within the party and within the policies when they were in power that they put into place, was a form of treason, both against his political leanings as well as the United States. I think he felt personally betrayed. I think that's why he chose to run. He's also mentioning getting rid of the redactions on the 9/11 report, which would please a lot of people. He even mentioned Saudi Arabia by name. He's the only presidential candidate to do that. All the others, because the Saudis are in bed with Israel, they say, oh, well, we shouldn't, they don't want to unredact the 9/11 report. Because those are the people that give them money. The Saudis are funding Hillary. She's gotten millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia. She's not going to get rid of the redactions in the 9/11 report. Somebody like Ted Cruz, who's in bed with Netanyahu, with the conservatives in Israel, he's not going to get rid of the redactions because it would implicate one of the closest regional allies to the Israelis. Oddly enough, the most violent extremist Islamic nation is somehow partnered with the Jewish state over in the Middle East. Many people don't find this odd. I do. I choose not to believe it's conspiracy so much as money because of billions and billions of dollars of oil sales. It's really what it boils down to. The Israeli state loves taking our money. They love Saudi money. And okay, if you pay them, they don't care. They'll give you weapons. They'll give you nuclear material. They don't give a fuck. If you pay them enough, they'll give you whatever you want. As long as you're leaving them alone, you can buy whatever you want from them. It's a little bit like the Russian mafia at this point. That's basically what the Israeli state has devolved into, because they have nothing else apparently to do with their lives other than make nuclear bombs and other weapons systems. But yeah, he's the only one who's saying he'll get rid of the redactions in the 9/11 report and implicates Saudi Arabia by name. That's fairly brave of him to do, because a lot of other people have probably been killed for suggesting that they would do such a thing. Maybe Scalia succumbed. Maybe Scalia uncovered something. Who knows? I'm just joking, by the way. And obviously, he was just beating off, and he had a heart attack. That's why they don't. The family doesn't want him autopsied, because they're gonna find that he beat off 5 or 6 times to gay porn before he stroked out or whatever. That's why Scalia's dead, probably. That's why the pillow, maybe he's into asphyxiation roleplay. That's why the pillow was over his head. I choose to believe he probably had some bizarre fantasies going on, because he seemed like such a prudish individual, and they're always the people who are the real freaks. They're the ones that put on chains and whip each other and piss all over each other. All the prudish, the Mormons are the ones looking up like golden showers and stuff over in Utah. They're the ones looking that shit up. So I'm just going to make that assumption that has something to do with Scalia's death. I know I'm ranting a bit here, but you understand what I say. I expect Trump to win South Carolina. I expect him probably to win Nevada. In fact, I think it's if he were to magically lose one of the 2 states, it'd probably be South Carolina. I think he's leading by more in Nevada now. I think it's almost 25 points at the last check. It's actually quite astonishing. And all of these people who keep talking about Trump's low ceiling, he's almost at 50% in Florida. Now, that's a state that he should have steep competition from somebody like Jeb Bush in, and yet the competition is disappearing. Nobody else is cracking, 25%. He's up near 50. That doesn't sound like a low ceiling to me. That sounds like it's actually better than the kind of numbers Romney was working with. There are still 5 other candidates in this race. Romney ran against 3 other candidates, and he was at about the same support level that Trump's at. When are you people going to wise up and realize that your party's being usurped by one from your own donor class because you fucking fucked up the country and gave us Obama? Trump realizes the Democrats are weak, the Republican field, and they're fairly weak, as we've seen, and he's going to run the table on you. And there's not a whole lot you can do. And this poll that they released from Wall Street Journal, Ted Cruz is ahead of Trump for National Choice of Republican. I'm going to say statistical error, because the other 3 or 4 polls that have been released in the last 24 to 48 hours all show Trump ahead by about 10 points. I'm going to assume that one poll and not these 3 or 4 other polls is probably the one that's inaccurate. But of course, which one did they decide to report on? It should show you. They can talk all day about, Ted Cruz is scary, Ted Cruz is fringe, he's not part of the establishment, he worries us. No, he's not. They're doing that specifically to try to deflect from Trump, because they don't want to talk about him any more than they have to, because he's winning. And that is what truly makes them scared. They want you to think that Cruz is the one that they're afraid of, because they're hoping that you'll then vote for Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz is just an evangel. He's a neocon with evangelical leanings, with Zionistic ties, like the Bushes, like Glenn Beck, like Trey Gowdy, and all of these other individuals. They're all exactly the same. They fear Trump because he's from the donor class, and if you look at the Republican Party's recent history, there's a fairly clear delineation between those who donate the money and get the favors and those who carry out the wishes of the donors. Trump crossed that line. That's why they don't like him. They see it as a breach of etiquette. They think he should be the one signing the checks and getting the kickbacks to get more money. He shouldn't be spending the money he got from those same kickbacks for the last 20 years on his own political campaign. My goodness, it's a high breach of Republican ethics. It would be like on the Democratic side, somebody like George Soros deciding to start a campaign instead of simply pumping tens of millions of dollars into the campaigns of people like Warren or Pelosi, or probably Sanders and Hillary both. It'd be about the same. I think Trump will win South Carolina quite handily by double digits. At this, even the people who don't like Trump are reserved to the fact that he's going to win the state. What does this show? He doesn't just have strength in the sort of urban or more secular parts of the country. I know some people, including Cruz, said, oh, well, he won New Hampshire because they're not as religious. They don't represent the Republican Party. There's a bunch of atheists up there in New England way. Brr, brr, brr. You know, it was very funny. I mean, he alienated half the country when he made that speech, too. That's why I'm saying Cruz will not be the nominee. That was true Santorum corner moment. He wins in the Deep South, in the Baptist lands of South Carolina. If he goes on to do that well in other states that are up on Super Tuesday, like, Georgia, Virginia, yeah, parts of the Deep South, Vermont's up, you know, he'll win Vermont. I probably got 40-50% by now in Vermont. I can't see anyone else beating him up here. Certainly not Cruz. Cruz will probably be at the bottom of the heap up here in my home state. It'll probably be Trump. The only one that could possibly challenge him is Rubio, because he's younger and he happens to flaunt his Hispanic ties, I guess. Ted Cruz might not even win his fucking home state, and he might as well go back to Texas if he doesn't win there. I think Trump, if he's smart, will go to Texas and campaign heavily, especially in blue parts of the state. Oh, I love immigrants. It's just these illegals are taking your jobs too, and he'll have their votes. He'll win Texas, force Cruz out of the race. No, nothing any longer to worry about. His support will be above 50%. He'll win everything from then on. He can seal the deal on Super Tuesday quite easily by just winning all but 2 or 3 of the states. If he wins at least, I think there are a total of, 12 states up. If he can win 9 of them, or even 8 of them, he's basically inevitable. If he wins all of them, he is inevitable, and he's already basically been nominated. But yeah, I expect him to do well, and I expect him to win Nevada as well. That's about all. Peace out.